Hey, critics, rated t.s.m, and welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be talking today about some issues that I feel as though other people might have but don't really talk about that they have in Korea, and just some feelings that I had with regards to living in Korea. That because some people might think that I thought it was perfect, and I don't want people to think that. I did not think it was perfect. It was mostly good. I mean, the good definitely outweighs the bad as to why I'm going to return and would stay there permanently even. But you know, there are just some things that there was just some seriously issues that I had. And as for my daily life vlog that I posted on Tuesday at 2:30, go check that out if you haven't seen it. It's not that it's super interesting, but I wish I had done more daily life vlogging in Korea. But when I go back to Japan, I definitely want to do more of that. So we'll see where that takes me and see if I have anything more interesting to vlog in the future. If Rona subsides, I will. And as for the blog, the uploading every other day, that was pretty nice. So I might be changing my upload schedule, but for right now, it's gonna stay at 2:30 on Tuesdays, it's Eastern Standard Time, and 12:30 on Thursdays, Eastern Standard Time. So let's get into this video. The biggest issue that I really had while I was in Korea was foreigners losing their identity or changing themselves in unnatural or seemingly unnatural ways to fit in or assimilate to Korea more. So for me, that wasn't really an issue. I wore the clothes that I brought were the clothes that I was happy to wear out in public all the time. The clothes that I bought are clothes that I would easily wear in the US, and not just things that are exclusive in terms of style to Korea. The way that I acted was pretty much how I acted while I was at home. However, the ways that I changed were ways that I was already trying to change. For example, how I handle relationships when they go sour, or you know, certain personality traits that I need to work on or eliminate from my life. And there were things like that that I definitely needed, that I still need to work on and eliminate from my life. And I had mentors to help me with that while I was in Korea, because I was very fortunate in that sense. However, there are a lot of people where they would change their style, change their behavior, or act in ways that were not really natural from when I first met them. There would be people that I would see where, like, I understand you like K-pop and you are interested in things like that, but you don't need to become a whole different person just because you're in Korea now, okay? You don't need, some people, and this is going to lead to another one, but the issue that I had, but it led into these issues of what I would call self-righteous foreigner issues that I really struggled to deal with in Korea. But the fact that there are so many people just changing themselves, I thought was unfortunate, because there are people, when I first met them, I thought that they were mostly great as they were. Obviously, everyone needs to work on something. We're all works in progress. But the mere fact that some people, they would change these in these ways when they got an oppa, or so that they could get an oppa, and was just very disheartening. And that was probably the biggest issue that I had while I was in Korea, the fair fact that people were changing themselves. And I met some people who realized that they were changing themselves, and like, no, I don't need to do this, I don't need to become a different person for this country. But then there were other people who didn't seem to realize that, and would just go do things that I think that they, you know, made these misguided attempts in order to fit in or become a different person than they were, when they didn't need to be. Especially if you're not going to live in Korea forever, you don't need to change in that sense. Like, obviously you need to change in whatever your works in progress are. Like, I need to change in whatever sense my works in progress are. But you don't need to become a brand new person when you move to Korea. Another issue that I definitely had were self-righteous foreigners, people who were who acted like they were too good, who act like they're too good to speak to you because they think that your Korean is not as good as theirs. Even, I'm talking about people who are beginner or fluent people. Like, I just never liked that. It's like, and it would come from Korean Americans a lot of times. Like, I'm not trying to judge Korean Americans by no means, I have no beef with them, but sometimes some of them, not all of them, would act like they were, because their Korean was so good, like they were better than you, or that they were just better than the rest of us. And the thing is, like, we're all foreigners. You're a foreigner too. You're called Kyopo for a reason, okay? You're not seen on the same level necessarily as Koreans who were born in Korea if you do not act the way Koreans expect you to act, or if you don't speak the language, or like can't understand the language like they would expect you to. So I just don't understand why some people just act like they're so self-righteous because like, oh, I'm better than you. And the thing is, this goes along into the third point I want to make about self-righteous foreigners. Like, and this is about the people who judge other foreigners. Like, this is an issue that I really could not understand. And so, like, on the foreign end, like, there's like two reasons why I don't like this. There's the foreign end and the Korean end. So first I'm going to say the foreign end. So on the foreign end, I don't like when foreigners judge other foreigners, because a lot of times they would think that their reason for coming to Korea or what they do is more valid than yours. I don't care for K-pop. I don't care for K-dramas. I'm not really into the whole Hallyu, however you pronounce it, wave or whatnot. But I don't care why you came to Korea. If you came because you love that stuff, go right ahead. You're giving Korea more money. You're giving me a good reason to stay there forever so that I can make rich off of the media. Okay? But here's the thing. People will judge people for coming for those reasons as if like, oh, I'm so much better. And this is what happens so too much. Or they would just act like, oh, I'm always following the rules. I'm always doing this in a specific way. And I just found it very frustrating, because the thing is, we're all foreigners, okay? You don't need to act like you're better than someone else just because they came in for K-pop. You don't need to judge them. And now on to Koreans judging. Like the fact that a lot of times Koreans would judge us and all lump us into the same group, as if we all came to Korea because we love K-pop, we love K-dramas, we want an oppa, or that we all just came to be teachers and stay here temporarily. The thing is, that's not the case for all of us. Yes, there are some of us who do have more long-term plans for Korea, who are actually interested in becoming fluent in Korean. And I do find it frustrating that there are foreigners that can live in Korea for decades upon decades and never learn Korean. I think that that's not okay. I think you need to learn Korean. You should not still be struggling with Hangul, because I've heard that there are people like that who've been living in Korea for decades and still struggle with Hangul. I even met one of those people. So you definitely should learn the language if you want to build more deep and meaningful relationships. But the fact that Koreans all just look at us and just think like, oh yeah, you're going to be here for like a short time, so I don't want to be with you, or don't see that we have more concrete goals, I just don't think is right. Like, why are you judging us? Okay, if I wanted to come to be a Korea and be a teacher, that's on me. That's my business. There's nothing wrong with being an English teacher. I think it's better, personally, to have teachers who are native speakers of the language to go teach a language. I mean, you know, like my Japanese teacher is Japanese and my Korean teachers were Korean. I wouldn't want a person that's not their native language to teach me the language. But the reality is, like, there's no need for this harsh criticism, because it makes people not want to come. And the thing is, Korea is pretty much thriving off of the fact that foreigners are pouring a lot into their economy because of K-pop, because of K-dramas, because they want to be English teachers, even though that's pretty much a dying job. And I don't really recommend you to try to go into it, because the amount of children in the country are kind of scarce. One thing I'm going to talk about is the fact that there is no such thing as it's not your fault when it comes to crimes. Okay, now I understand especially in the case of sexual assault, they do have to ask a lot of questions and be clear on the way things happened or why things happen. So especially if something happens to you, please go to police. But the fact that you're not allowed to do anything in terms of assaulting back is just bonkers to me. Like, I once remember my professor once told a story about how he got into a car accident. Car accident was not his fault at all, but the person who was in the car accident, because they were going to their doctor, just to go to a doctor to get them sign off and say they had some neck injury from the car accident, even though it was completely their fault, they were changing it to 90-10. In terms of 90%, it was my professor's fault, 10% and his fault, even though it was originally going to be 90% the guy who hit him's fault and 10% my professor's fault. And the thing is, why is it my professor's fault if he did nothing wrong? And this is not just limited to him. This goes for everyone. For example, okay, there was once I heard a story about, I forgot exactly all the details, don't remember all the details, but he just basically assaulted a young man on the street. And because the young man assaulted him and, like, I guess broke his jaw or something, the young man, went to jail for breaking that ajashi's jaw. Not the ajashi who did the wrong in the first place, who had no right to get out of his car and just go assault this guy on the street. over some weird thing that he did. And it's just ridiculous. Like, I mean, especially if you're a foreigner, how do you, or especially if you're a woman, how do you expect to not need to defend yourself or want to defend yourself if somebody's doing something to you? How can it be our fault? Like, how can 10% be my fault? It's just not right. It's not right. The fifth and final thing I'm going to be talking about in this video is the fact that it's about like media portrayals of women or lack thereof. We're not going to get into other women's issues because I could talk all day about how bad the US and Japan are too. Japan, my emotional safety was killed many times, and US, my physical safety is put at threat all the time because I am a black woman. Even in the daytime, I don't feel safe. But in Korea, I felt physically and emotionally safe pretty much all the time for the most part. So let's get into these media portrayals, which is the thing that really irritates me about how women are treated. First of all, there is a lack of roles for women. I once heard Carson, Megan Bowen's friend, like Megan Bowen, aka Chona Saram, her friend Carson once said that there are a lack of roles for women. And that's definitely true. You can see from posters, because on posters, I see almost no women on the posters, really at all. I'll see maybe 1 or 2 girls and a bunch of other guys. Like Hospital Playlist, for example, it's not a love drama, because usually you see that with romance dramas. I see 1 girl with a bunch of other guys. Now you could argue, well, most doctors are male or whatever, but that's not the point. Like, you're telling me that you can't add more significant women to this cast. Now, I didn't watch the show, so I don't really know what happened, but I can tell you from the poster, to me, that doesn't look promising if I only see 1 female. Like, I want to see more women. Or it's really hard, unless maybe it's a high school drama sometimes, to find dramas where you see several women on the poster, or like just a whole cast of women that's only about women, that's made by women, geared to and for women. And it doesn't have to be, you know, some love drama or some really fancy crazy thing like Sky Castle or other things like that. We need something that, you know, like maybe it's just organic, just like a slice of life or something like that. But it just seems really hard to find women, and when they're portrayed, they're usually portrayed awfully, usually very, very annoying, usually very, very, you know, like they could be really strong and awesome in the beginning, but when a man comes along, they become stupid or don't know how to do anything or want to kill themselves over a guy. I mean, that's actually what happened. That was basically the storyline and Boys Over Flowers with John D and Jun Pyo. Or they have no personality at all. I mean, just because you can sing in a K-pop band does not mean that you can act. So I really wish that we would, to me, it's a really big issue that needs to be resolved, is the poor media portrayals of women, which is why I don't really like watching K-dramas to begin with. And what other thing that needs to be resolved is the lack of media portrayals of women. Stop with the same lame brain drawn out same storylines for K-dramas. Okay, there's a reason why 3 love stories that were really anticipated that K-dramas this year failed. That's all I gotta say about that. Now, that is pretty much my list of 5 things. Before you judge me and say, well, that's the way Korea is, don't act like Koreans don't want change too, because I've heard many Koreans complain about the self-defense laws that are very much archaic. So I'm not the only one just saying these things. But I do know that I have talked about some of these things with other people about how they feel with regards to, you know, especially foreigners losing their identity in Korea and how that should stop. And my main issue is that, really, I don't want people to come to Korea thinking that they have to change. And the fact that the way women are portrayed in the media, I would definitely love for that to change, so that we can have more women in media and we can have more women portrayed in a much better way that's more accurate to how Korean women behave in real life when it comes to realistic stuff. But that's all I've got for you guys today. If you like this video and like to see more videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. Please also hit the notification bell so you get notified every time a new video comes out. And please hit the description box down below and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. Bye!